Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Humans Are Hungry, written by Dark Prince 010. Our study finds that these aliens live in a sort of tribal warrior society and practice ancestor worship. The study also determined that they are delicious and pair well with garlic. At the front of the lecture hall, the long millipede-like alien professor let out a sigh of frustration, many of their sets of limbs making signs of disgust and aggravation.
Your Honor, for what is the third time this semester, I must remind you that consumption of novel species and cultures is highly discouraged.
The human at the front smiled a mischievous half-grin and shrugged. Sorry, Professor. An opportunity came when they were engaging in a ritual battle against another tribe. According to customs, the dead who fell dishonorably in battle are not to be buried or given other rites. And, my rations had been running pretty thin, and I didn't want to let a good meal go to waste, so, She trailed off. In any case, the flavor is something akin to earth invertebrate called shrimp. It seems like most invertebrates have a similar flavor and have a similar succulent meat, she said. It was only for a moment, but the professor noticed the human's gaze briefly dart over and sweep across them and their own distinctly invertebrate body as well, clamping down on the shudder of revulsion that threatened to sweep across and overwhelm her secondary limbs. The alien pointed instead with a primary claw at the presentation slide.
But this is the very reason we've told you and your kind again and again not to eat others, for you have no idea what the impact your actions may have had. For example, did they offer for you to consume the bodies of the dead, or did you request it?
The human gaze slid to the side. The professor felt the surge of frustration to the point that she almost wanted to pluck out her antennae.
Please tell me you did not steal away the bodies of the dead to cook them and consume them in secret.
In a voice that was almost under her breath, Luana said, I suppose I won't tell you that then,
I feel that you are purposely misinterpreting the point of a department called Culinary Sociology. Did you even find out what their own food practices are, or were you too busy pan-frying the dishonored dead you snuck off with?
You know, that actually would have been the great treatment, but I just decided to simmer them in butter reduction. But yes, for the record, I did find about their food practices. The human looked hurt, but the professor was past caring at this point. Thankfully, Luana was the only human in their department this year. But when they had previously had humans, grad students, and undergrads, it was always a crapshoot finding a world developed enough to offer a culture worthy of investigation, but not so well developed that they would be able to mount a formal complaint if the humans took their typical predilections and began snacking on the populace. Luana advanced to the next slide. On it were a number of dishes and preparations, and at this the professor heard a murmur of interested appreciation amongst the other alien students in the department that was seated in the hall, ones that were more faithful to the original intent and goals of culinary sociology. As is typical with culture with a strong ancestral tradition, dishes are very frequently the result of inherited recipes and formulas. In particular, a commonality is a spice blend called krugrash, which is almost akin to an everything bagel earth seasoning, but with specific blends of seeds, aromatic herbs, salt, and oil nodules that are carried on parent to child, and significantly permanently changed in the strictly dictated patterns to signify major life events. Thus, it's possible, with enough familiarity, that one can actually dictate their family's history and major events affecting it within the last 2 to 3 generations, based simply on trying one of the dishes that they've made. There was a sound of awed interest from amongst the students in the lecture hall. It was a far smaller crowd than would normally be seen for the preliminary defense presentation like this, most likely due to how strongly repulsed most of the other students were with the humans' ravenous tendencies. However, even the professor could feel herself leaning forward in interest, at the description Luana was giving of this aspect of their culinary tradition. The next slide had an image of a human smiling and shaking a hand with one of the chitinous limbs of an elder of the group. This was, of course, what the group's chieftain told me. It was something he was particularly proud of being able to do, although I can say, with confidence, I do not have the skills to make that fine of a distinction with the flavors. Still, it was a valuable and very satisfying experience overall, and I'm glad to have had a chance to witness and discover a whole new realm of flavors. The slide clicked to the final screen, which flashed up saying, "Any questions?" and Luana echoed it. Turning to look at the rest of the lecture hall, the professor saw that most of the other students had stood and left. Understandable, given that many of them were uncomfortable to be in the presence of humans for too long. The professor had a few questions herself, but ones that she would communicate to the human's graduate advisor, an inedible silica-based crab-like being. She also had more than a few comments that she would pass along to the human embassy as well, although she didn't have any faith that they would act upon it. The humans were renowned for their appetites, and while mostly content to participate peacefully with the other species of the galaxy, the alien still felt a shudder of unease as Luana gave her a final wave and a smile. Again, the professor caught that momentary glimpse of the human's eye roving across her shell, and she could only imagine what manner of cooking and poaching in butter the human had planned should the professor let her guard down. She shivered again, remembering the words of her own mentor when she'd first learned of humans and their hunger.
It is always wise to respect humans and not give them a reason for anger. Remember, in their eyes, you are crunchy and good with ketchup.
End of story. Story number 2. The humans have become our buffer state. Written by OK Peak 9537. It has been 30 galactic years since the conflict that encompassed the Reissue Empire's allies. Usually, occupation would be death of an empire, and, in a way, it has. The humans have such a high level of understanding of how to create an empire that even the proud Gale Bath's empire asked to be underneath mankind. Their economy no longer reliant upon raiding or piracy. In fact, they've been adopted into various soul militaries, and at a high pay. Offhandedly, the humans refer to them as space orcs. Sometimes we Rashar even hear of the female gear boss being referred to as muscle bommies. This time, however, the unrest comes from our expansionist neighbors, the mono-race empire of the Thaleen Empire. A nation of long-necked lizards whose interactions with humans has been a little rocky in the manner with which they have had to intervene. The crux of the issue is that the Thaleen Empire, as a species, hoard everything. The humans, on the other hand, have asked to purchase a planet that no one could feasibly use. After 3 days back and forth, we simply told them to take the money and let the unusable planet go. The purchasers? A country in Europe by the unusual name Poland. I can only assume this name refers to a nation positioned near one of the planet's magnetic poles. The only reason the Thaleen wanted to hold onto it was that the planet risked a high likelihood that it would be attacked. Strategically placed as it was, it could access a number of actually inhabited planets in a close proximity. Puzzled about this worry, I disclosed this to a Polish representative. "Might have another empire attacks. Skezia, nish spróbulia skiewu." My translator had no direct translation, so I asked him to explain. "It's like this, you see," he replied in English. "Our current battle strategy has been to prepare, and prepare. In the event that we'll eventually be attacked, we will cut the teeth of any who dare to try. No longer a stepping stone, we shall become the bastion against all aggressors." A dangerous glint entered the representative's eyes. "Even against all odds, we'll make any victory against us a Pyrrhic one. It will be Granst all over again." I wound up going home rifling through the documentation, and what I found was that the humans are terrifying. The things that they did to themselves made the conflict with the gear boss look like they had only been dealing with a young Rish having a tantrum. Honestly, the information that was shared in its uncensored form gave me nightmares. My term as an envoy was almost ending, however. I made a note to pass this information along to who would replace me. Commented, in my mind was the need to keep humanity as our friends. I think, when I retire, I shall go teach. End of story. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 peeps. Dragon Soup, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Red Panda 121, Leslie 517, Bushmaster 177, Caspar Arnholt, Cam Maxwell, Sans the Skeleton, Lightjock, Dragzoon WRE, and Lord Azrakal. Thank you very much.